So I'm preaching a series of sermons through the book of Ecclesiastes, a book embedded in the Bible's wisdom literature, books like Psalms and Proverbs and Song of Songs. I'm trying to show us that this little overlooked at times and often misunderstood book shows us in its own way the surprising path to the good life. The preacher, the way we translate that word Kohelet, I like to say Kohelet, looks out at the world and shares what he sees. Frankly, that's why the book has a dark reputation. He describes life in a fallen world. There is no sugarcoating and no spiritualizing here. If you're looking for squishy sentimentalism, this will not be the sermon for you. I see things which are crooked, Kohelet says, that cannot be made straight. Repeatedly, the preacher says, I saw. And he sees at least three harsh realities in our text this morning, if you're taking notes: oppression, envy, and loneliness. He looks out under heaven. He looks out at all that's transpiring under the sun. He sees the weeping of the oppressed, and he sees power arrayed on the side of the oppressor. No one's coming to help these people. He says it's better off that they wouldn't have even been born. It's so dark. Not only does he see oppression, he sees envy. Envy is leading people to work as hard as they can, not because they're content and glorifying God in their work, but because they want what others have. They want to outshine the people around them. And he sees people who have done this. They've entered this rat race and they have won. They're on top, but they realize how lonely they are. He sees, too, the unhappy business of loneliness. And so what I want to do this morning is I want to stand shoulder to shoulder with Kohelet and look out at a broken world. I want us to see what he sees. I want to name that brokenness. But even in that brokenness, if you know where to look, Ecclesiastes is offering us a better way to live. And so as we stand shoulder to shoulder with Kohelet this morning, I want to consider three things broadly. I want us to look out at everything under heaven and see what he saw. Three things in Ecclesiastes chapter 4. First, the danger and vanity of power. The danger and vanity of power. Second, the temptations of the rat race. The temptations of the rat race. And third, the unhappy business of loneliness. The unhappy business of loneliness. The title of this sermon is A Broken World and a Better Way. Ecclesiastes chapter 4. Let's read the whole thing, verses 1 through 16, and then we're going to stand shoulder to shoulder with Kohelet. We're going to look out at the world. We're going to see what he saw and see what God might be doing in the middle of even this broken world. Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 1, let's read. Again, I saw all the oppressions that are done under the sun, and behold, the tears of the oppressed, and they had no one to comfort them. On the side of their oppressors, there was power, and there was no one to comfort them. And I thought the dead who are already dead more fortunate than the living who are still alive. But better than both is he who has not yet been, and has not seen the evil deeds that are done under the sun. Then I saw that all toil and all skill in work come from a man's envy of his neighbor. This also is vanity and a striving after wind. The fool folds his hands and eats his own flesh. Better is a handful of quietness than 2 hands full of toil and a striving after wind. Again, I saw vanity under the sun. One person who has no other, either son or brother, yet there is no end to all his toil, and his eyes are never satisfied with riches, so that he never asks, for whom am I toiling and depriving myself of pleasure? This also is vanity and an unhappy business. 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. Again, if 2 lie together, they keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? And though a man might prevail against one who is alone, 2 will withstand him. A threefold cord is not quickly broken. Better was a poor and wise youth than an old and foolish king who no longer knew how to take advice. For he went from prison to the throne, though in his own kingdom he had been born poor. I saw all the living who move about under the sun, along with that youth who was to stand in the king's place. There was no end of all the people, all of whom he led. Yet those who come later will not rejoice in him. Surely this also is vanity and a striving after wind. This is the word of the Lord. Earthly power is 2 things, at least in this text, temporary and intoxicating. This section of the chapter deals broadly about politics. So if you want Mace to talk about politics, you're going to have a few minutes of me talking about the danger of power in the political realm. The first is more straightforward, and the second is a bit more obtuse, maybe a little confusing, but still helpful in its own right. So let's start with that second one, if you will, at the end of the chapter. I think there we'll see that earthly power, at best, is temporary. Look with me at verse 13 again. Better was a poor and wise youth than an old and foolish king who no longer knew how to take advice. For he went from prison to the throne, though in his own kingdom he had been born poor. I saw the living who were moved about in the sun, along with that youth who was to stand in the king's place. There was no end of all the people he led. Let's stop there for just a moment. So Kohelet tells us in this little tiny story, a story of a man who's born poor, but he's wise and he's crafty and he's smart. And he rises through poverty and prison and all these challenges to become the king. Now, the old king had become foolish because he no longer knew how to take advice. Now, that's a nice little nugget, too, that we need to point out in the sermon. When you stop listening to other people, you inevitably become a fool. What's that old saying, pride cometh before the fall? I think that saying comes from somewhere. In any event, this young man who becomes king goes on to have an influential reign. The text says there was no end of all the people he led. He led multitudes of people. It's a rags to riches story. It's this great king rises and overcomes this old foolish king, and there's no end of all the people who are influenced by him, who are under his reign. Yet, the text says, those who come later will not rejoice in him. He reaches the top of the mountain only to be stranded there. He got old and the new guy came along. They got bored with him. No one is popular forever. No one stays on top forever. And there's our favorite phrase again, that last sentence that Kohelet has said so many times. Surely this also is a vanity and a striving after wind. Power at best then is fleeting. We see in this little story, this man rises in his own kingdom. He overcomes this foolish old king. He becomes the king. He leads the people. There are multitudes of people he's leading. They love him. Everything's going well. But then his reign is going to end and people are going to be like, well, that guy, he's old news. Who cares about him anymore? Those who come later do not rejoice in him. This is vanity and a striving after the wind. Power at best then is fleeting, but at worst, power is intoxicating. Look back at verse 1 and Kohelet's first observation in this chapter. We started these observations of darkness in chapter 3, if you'll remember, and we go a bit deeper in them here in chapter 4. Verse 1 of chapter 4. Again, I saw all the oppressions that are done under the sun, and behold, the tears of the oppressed, and they had no one to comfort them. Even worse than having no one to comfort them, the people arrayed on their side are the powerful people of the world. That leads him to say these striking sentences. I thought the dead who are already dead more fortunate than the living who are still alive. Better than both, those who have not yet been born. Kohelet looks out at the world and he sees a fundamental brokenness. He sees injustice. As I said, that theme was introduced in the last chapter, in verse 16 of chapter 3. Moreover, I saw under the sun that in the place of justice, even there was wickedness. And in the place of righteousness, even there was wickedness. The people who are supposed to lead God's people in justice, like the king, in righteousness, like the priests, they're all wicked. Everyone is seeking after their own good. They're holding on to power. Power is collapsing on itself. This is our world, Kohelet says. Where there should be justice, there is wickedness. Where there should be righteousness, there is wickedness. Where there should be flourishing, there is oppression. This world is full of suffering and terrible things here we see. You see what Kohelet sees. I see what Kohelet sees. Look around us. How many people are starving right now? How many people are right now dying of preventable diseases? How many families have been ripped apart by unjust wars? How many innocent lives have been slain at the press of a button? How many people around the world today languish in slavery? The generation before them was a sewer cleaner in the streets under Islamabad. Another's making bricks somewhere in South Asia, and there's no end in sight to their slavery. How many people are bought and sold and trafficked by evil, powerful people in our world today? Kohelet sees a darkness which is so dark. He says that he wishes people just didn't even exist to see this. And it's so dark because it's so hopeless. He sees oppression, and who could fix it? Powerful people. But the powerful people are not on the side of the oppressed, and there's no one to comfort them. There's no one to challenge them. They are on the side of the oppressor. Now, we need to have a balanced look at the whole scripture when we preach a specific text. Power can be used well. There are good kings in the Bible, good leaders, but there are more examples of bad kings than good kings, to be frank. There are more examples of people who use their power poorly. Israel's kings let her down more often than not. Their kingly institution is an abject failure. We typically don't handle power well because we're sinners. Power caves inward because we are sinful creatures. This is our nature. We look out for ourselves. Human nature doesn't consider others as we should. When we have power and influence, we are tempted to use it to advance ourselves. It's intoxicating. When we have it, we don't want to give it up. Kohelet looks out at a world where powerful people perpetuate oppression, and he laments. Friend, I want to make the case this morning that Christians should be the least surprised of anyone that we live in a world where oppressors have their way. Now, oppressors can be restrained. This is one good goal of government, as we see in Romans 13. God has given the sword to try and enforce some level of discernible good in a fundamentally broken world. So the argument's not we should be okay with evil. The argument is that we should see it and first lament. Here's something that the Christian understands that the secular modern person cannot understand. We will never fix the sin problem that plagues us. Why? What's the same reason every earthly vision of a utopia fails? We are sinners. This isn't throwing our hands up and quitting. It's not doing nothing about the problems that plague us. It's taking an honest assessment of what can be done. For to say we can overcome our own sin in any long-term sustained way at an individual level or a societal level is to deny the necessity of a coming king, a messianic figure who would be the good king to rule after all the bad kings in a broken world. We say with Kohelet, I have seen crooked things which cannot be made straight. We live in a dark, dark world, friends. All I think this text does is give us language to say that. There is no sugarcoating it. There is no spiritualizing it. There is no justifying it or rationalizing it. Kohelet does not. The Bible does not. Powerful people don't need you to puff them up. When you see the headlines, when you see the statistics, when you see the faces of the suffering, you see what the preacher saw. You are experiencing what he described, and the right thing to do with the preacher is to lament. Maybe the arc of the universe does bend toward justice, I don't know, but the systems of the world bend towards oppression. Not only that, but the systems of the world trap us into what I'm calling the rat race, a second thing that Kohelet sees. When it comes to work, Kohelet says, there are two equal and opposite temptations. We've seen so far a fundamental brokenness. This is our world. We've seen the danger and vanity of power. Kohelet looks out and his eyes get big and as they well up with tears and he sees all these bad things happening in our world and he just laments that we even are alive to see them. So he looks out and he sees oppression and he sees powerful people with the oppressors, and now he looks out and he sees what I'm calling here the temptations of the rat race. When it comes to work, I think you'll see in this text, there are two opposite and equally terrible temptations. There are two opposite and equally terrible temptations. The first is to give yourself entirely to your work out of a desire to have more, be more, do more, and outshine other people. And the second is to give up on work entirely and quit. As the preacher describes the world, he sees both of these things happening in chapter 4. And I think we see these things in our world too. Look at verse 4. Then I saw that all toil and all skill in work come from a man's envy of his neighbor. This also is vanity and a striving after wind. Now, you could call this cynical. You could say all toil and all skill in work come from envy. Everyone's always motivated by envy. And I just remind you that poetry is the language of the prophet. He's making a point about a broken world. Just like every single person who has power doesn't use it poorly. In fact, the king at the end of this chapter, we have no reason to think he was a terrible, terrible king. He was pretty popular and then he just died and was forgotten. So it's not to say that always, in every circumstance, everyone is motivated by envy. But it is to say, in a broken world where sinners live, most people are motivated by envy. All of us have hearts which are radically corrupted by sin. You might call it cynical. I call it prophetic. How often are we motivated by envy? I want what you have, so I'll work hard to get it. We want that house. We want that car. We want those vacations. We want those credentials. We want that respect. We want that platform. Whatever it is they have, I want it. And that motivation can push us. It can push us through education. It can push us through a job hunt. It can push us through bad days. For I feel like I'm a failure until I get some external validation, a word our generation so dearly loves. My envy leads me to resent people who have what I think I'm entitled to. You have more money. You have a better job. You have this book deal. You have a bigger church. You have a bigger platform. You get these opportunities. Why don't I have those? I'm better than him. I'm smarter than him. Why don't I have this family? Why don't I have these friends? Why don't I have this church? Why don't I have this car? Why can't I go on those vacations? Why doesn't my dad love me like that? Why doesn't my mom care for me like that? Why does he get to go to that school and she gets to go? Why do I get this? Why do they get that? We look out and envy is so tempting. Envy entices us. Envy says, you should have that. They're keeping you from that. If you work harder, maybe you'll get it. And I just want to be one voice with Kohelet in the Word of God this morning saying, don't listen to that voice. It's enticing. It's dangerous. Like, I need to be aware of my own motives and how those are affecting the trajectory of my life and the day-to-day decisions of my life. I vividly remember one story from my life to help show my own struggle with this particular sin. I vividly remember one interaction my freshman year at Davidson College. There was a student on the swim team from the Pacific Northwest who went to some fancy prep school, and we were in a freshman writing seminar together. I don't remember how I got so annoyed by her, but I did. She said something that just rubbed me the wrong way, and I wanted to do better than her in this class. I wanted to outshine her. I wanted to get a better grade. I wanted to show her the strength of a PhD, a POCA high diploma. I've always been the underdog. I can't help it. And so I was so convinced. I'm going to beat this girl. Katie Leyendecker. I am going to get a better grade in freshman writing with Dr. Ewington, and I'm going to outshine her. And so this was going to be my motivation for this particular class. And so I'm back on my hall, 4th floor of Richardson Hall. I'm telling my RA, Kyle Snipes, who was a young life leader, coincidentally, that'll factor in here in a moment. And I'm telling him, I'm going to show this girl that I'm she might be smart. Her parents might have got her this prep school education, but POCA high diplomas are worth something, man. And I'm going to get a better grade. I'm going to be a better writer. I'm going to do better than her in this class. And he looked at me, and he didn't just say, yeah, that sounds great, dude. Go for it. He said, yeah, man, be careful with that. I hear you, but you should be motivated to do your best and glorify God in your work, not outdo her. First of all, how dare you? Second of all, you're right. How many times in my life have I come back to that conversation to check my motives, to see where a sense of envy and entitlement is bubbling up and leading me to work harder than maybe others. Frankly, if I didn't have a Kyle Snipes, I don't know when I would have learned that lesson. He wasn't my best friend. I don't even know if he remembers me. Maybe he does. We're friends on social media, right? But it's one interaction of not many interactions. And that one interaction has served as something I return to time and time again in my life. Have you had that Kyle Snipes intervention, if you will? Frankly, I think some of us just never grow up here. We start the rat race at a middle school lunch table and we keep running it to the grave. We spend our lives comparing ourselves to others, scrolling their stories and working as hard as we can to outshine them with our own. We want to be smarter. We want to be cooler. We want to be more comfortable. We want our future to be more secure. We want to be more righteous. We want to be more committed to justice and virtue. We want to be better, do better, be more, and do more. We, frankly, want to win. We want to be the best, we want to be seen as the best, and we want others to validate us as the best. Envy calls us to run harder and run faster. And Ecclesiastes has a very, very simple message. A Kyle Snipes intervention, if you will. It's vanity. It's pointless. It's striving after the wind. So sometimes envy motivates us to work really hard so we can be the best and do the best, and sometimes we do. I mean, I just watched the Jerry West documentary on Prime Video, and Jerry said what Tom Brady said, or he won Super Bowls. He finally wins a world championship with the Los Angeles Lakers after coming short so many times and coming short at WVU in a national championship. And he's like always, what's the saying? Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. He's always in second place. He's always there, and he finally wins a world championship. And he's like, I couldn't shake this what now feeling. This is it feeling. We hear that so many times from accomplished people. In the moment, that feels so good, but there's an emptiness. I think the emptiness we feel after is often related to the pursuit in the first place. So there are some people who do climb the heights. They do win, but envy still leaves them empty. There are some who work extremely hard to prove people wrong, and we cheer it on as Christians. Yeah, you should go show them, right? Unfortunately. But there's other people who do the opposite thing. Look at verse 5. The fool folds his hands and eats his own flesh. Remember, poetry is the language of the prophet. This is a fun little sentence. To fold your hands is a way of saying, I'm not going to put them to work anymore. To fold your hands is like how we would say, throw in the towel. To fold your hands is to quit. And so there's a relationship in folding your hands and eating your own flesh. This means that quitting out of envy, despair, whatever, quitting is fundamentally destructive, and it's self-destructive. You know the feeling. I'll just use another story from my past. You forget to study for a trigonometry test. You pull out the lesson, you see what you're supposed to study, and you look at it and say, it would take a miracle, something akin to the parting of the Red Sea for me to pass this test. And so you look at this thing and you're just seeing shapes and letters and numbers. Those should be three different things. And you see them all in a line together, and you're supposed to somehow make heads and tails of this. And you're looking at it and you're like, I don't know what any of these words mean. So here's how I'm going to spend my evening. I'm going to not study for the test. I'm going to put this book over here. Tomorrow, I'm either going to fail the test or I'm going to magically get sick. And we start working the plan of how we're going to manage this unmanageable situation. And so envy then can lead some people to become a workaholic, and it can lead some people to say, I could never do that. I could never become that. I could never get that. And so instead of embracing my lot, doing my best for the glory of God with what I have, we just quit. And Kohelet is so insightful here. He says, if you think you can, get off the rat race by just quitting, I got bad news for you. That's another a symptom of you're on the rat race, because complacency is self-destructive. The fool folds his hands and eats his own flesh. His idleness destroys him. You keep applying for jobs and none are responding, so you just quit. You're in a rough patch at church and you decided everyone hates you, so you just quit. Your marriage is in a tough place, so you just quit trying. You don't get divorced, maybe you do, likely you don't, but you just tune out. I can never be what he or she wants me to be. Why am I even trying? You're tired of your day job, your daily routine, so you just dream of escaping. You scroll all day, you distract yourself while you're on the clock, you run the clock out with meaningless stuff, you waste your days, and before you know it, you've wasted your life. Kohelet is weaving in here a better way of being. He says you don't have to work hard to outshine everyone else. In fact, you must not. But don't quit, friends. Don't just put your hands together and get idle, because if you do that, you're going to eat away at yourself. It's a fundamentally destructive thing. Embrace your lot and keep going. How many times have we seen this in Ecclesiastes? What are the three interpretive keys? Life is vanity. It's a vapor. It's a mist. It's here today, gone tomorrow. But this vanity is a gift. Whatever I have, my job, my family, my church, whatever I have is a gift from God. I have it because it's a gift from God, and I should embrace it instead of wanting it to be something else. Not only is it a gift from God to be enjoyed, but here's the third and most important interpretive key. That gift points to the giver of the gift, because life is for God. We'll see that in chapter 5. And then at the end of the book, Kohelet will stop his lecture. He'll put the microphone down. He'll blow his cigarette out, if you will. And the stage hand, the MC, will come back up and he'll say something along the lines of, so fear and obey God with all your days. Kohelet looks out at the world and he sees oppression so dark, it's hard to even speak of. He looks out at the world and he sees people who are in this hamster wheel of death. He sees envy as a motive. Imagine seeing that in the ancient world and how multiplied that is now. If it was a temptation then, it's a temptation now where you don't just compare yourself to 6 or 7 people in your village. You compare yourself to 7 or 8 billion people on the planet. Kohelet looks out at the world. He sees oppression. He sees envy. And third and finally, he sees loneliness, the unhappy business of loneliness. Again, I saw one person who has no other. He has no son and he has no brother. What's all the gain for? What's the purpose of all of my work? Maybe envy has run its course on this person. Maybe they're stuck in the rat race and now they have these habits they cannot break. They feel they are beyond repair. They work and work and work and work and work. Their lives are all about themselves. They're really successful and they're profoundly lonely. He's never done working. He's never satisfied with what he has. He never stops to ask, who am I doing all of this for? Kohelet sees what he calls the unhappy business of loneliness. But as he sees the unhappy business of loneliness, he sees the value of a friend. Look at verse 9. Again, Kohelet is describing the world, and he's hinting at a better way that we'll, of course, land the plane on in just a moment. He sees the unhappy business of loneliness, but he goes on to sort of explain the value of a friend, of the value of a companion. Look at verses 9, 10, 11, and 12. In these verses, Kohelet is sort of fleshing out the value of a friend, the value of a companion. 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. Again, if 2 lie together, they keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? And though a man might prevail against one who is alone, 2 will withstand him. A 3-fold cord is not quickly broken. So check it out. 2 people have a good reward for their toil. Now, again, why is Kohelet having to sort of share the value of companionship? He has to share the value of companionship because you have to count the cost of companionship. To have a companion is to give up something, frankly. To be married is to give up a level of control over your life. That's what the Apostle Paul wants us to see, that the 2 become one. You don't lose your inherent status as an individual, but now your 2 lives are one life. This is physically true, and it is spiritually true. So the 2 become one. So before you enter into a marriage covenant, count the cost of the 2 becoming the 1, right? Friendships are costly. To develop a friendship, you have to give it effort and time. Church relationships are costly. You invest something into them. Relationships with your job, with other people, all relationships that are going to bear fruit are going to be costly. So there is a cost in every good relationship. That's why he wants us to make sure we see the reward. You lose something of your own freedom when you bind yourself to another because your good is now my good. That's the essence of friendship. As together we say you too and walk through this common horizon, I commit myself to you and you commit yourself to me and we're going there together. If you want to go fast, they say go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so what Kohelet here does is he shows the value of a companion. If one falls, a friend is there to pick him up. If 2 lie together, they can stay warm. If someone attacks us and we're together, we can overcome the assailant. I think that's like a prison thing, right? A 3-fold cord is not quickly broken. You hear that verse at weddings sometimes, don't you? I think this passage is saying, hey, we're better off together than we are apart. And we need reminded of this. I need reminded of this. Like, I am a loner. I like to do things alone. On Mondays, I always have the same routine. On Mondays, I kind of take off usually, but I work on all my school stuff. So at Midwestern, so I'll grade papers, I'll do my announcements, submit my attendance, and look ahead of the week. And then after I do that, I love to just go do things by myself and tell no one where I am. I'll just go shopping and go here. Yeah, just kind of go there, do nothing. I love that time. I love to be by myself. I like to be in a car by myself. I like to be on a plane by myself. I like to do things by myself. It's easy for me. Some of that's just the difficulty of friendships in this spot, to be blunt. But over the years, it's been challenging for me to see that value of friendship. When I could just do it alone, I'm fine. But I need reminded, and you need reminded, that we are actually better off together than we are alone. God sees this in the garden, does he not? It was not good. How many times do we see in Genesis 1 and 2? It was good, it was good, it was good, it was good. He created birds, they're good. Trees, good. Sky, good. Land, good. All, water, good. What's not good? That man should be alone. We were created to have someone with us, a companion, a friend. We were not made for convenience. We were made for companionship. We live in a world where everything is being optimized for our convenience. Everything. It's more convenient to do, you name the task, than ever. We're automating everything. And the Christian faith stands as sort of this bulwark in the middle of progress, saying, hey, yeah, human progress, good. Let's move forward, but let's not lose our humanity in the process. What does it mean to be a human? Something at the very heart of our humanity. We were made for companionship. We were made for friendship. We were not made for convenience. One of my favorite quotes in a novel, it's like a little sentence that sticks with me. It's a gentleman in Moscow, and Count Rostov is this like man of the intelligentsia, this cultured man in Russia, and the Bolsheviks throw him in this prison, but the prison is the Metropolitan Hotel, and he's like sort of spending years and years in this hotel, and he ends up raising this child in this hotel, right? This is a single man of the upper class, child rearing. He, like many today, turns his nose up at, right? It's for those people. And he's raising this child, and he comes to love this child and care for this child and find meaning and purpose in providing for this child. And he says this one thing. He says, Alyoshka, I had it all. I had a carriage at one party waiting to take me to the next party. I had friends in high places. I had all the conveniences you could possibly imagine. He says, but I have come to learn that the things that were not convenient, it was the inconveniences that have mattered to me the most. That's why Sunday morning, I'll be a little bit blunt here, stands as an inconvenient part of your schedule every single week. Saying, start your week here, no matter what. Because we were made for companionship with the people of God as we journey together. We need to introduce holy inconveniences into our lives to remind us who our lives are for. Finally, we see a better way in these words. As we close, let's just zoom out for a minute. When Kohelet looks out at the world, he looks and he sees oppression, he sees envy, he sees loneliness, and he sees all these dark realities. He does not see Jesus here. So is Jesus in this book? Can we preach Jesus from this book? Oh, certainly, because Kohelet looks out and sees these things and laments in his finitude, laments in all that he cannot do. Jesus looks down. And Jesus sees the cries of the oppressed. Jesus sees people running the rat race. Jesus sees people who are fundamentally lonely. And he doesn't throw up his pre-incarnate hands and say, the consequences of their own actions. No, he loved us. Here is the gospel in Ecclesiastes 4. Jesus is a friend of sinners who uses his power to free us from oppression, envy, vanity, and loneliness. And Nate, I'm finished if you want to come up. Jesus is the friend of sinners who draws near to us. Jesus is our closest companion. If you're looking for something in someone that only Jesus can give, you will always be looking. You will inevitably grow bitter at the people you have. Jesus is our friend who sticks closer than a brother. Jesus is our great companion. Jesus is our liberator. He breaks the power of sin, our great oppressor. And in his name, as we sing in that great Christmas hymn, all oppression shall cease. He will return to judge the living and the dead, and he will establish his kingdom, which will never end. He motivates us in life to keep going, not with guilt, but with grace. Not with envy, but with gratitude. In him we live and work and play as those who have been freed from the frivolity of a fallen world. We enjoy our meal as a gift from God. We go to work as a gift from God. We make it work with our spouse as a gift from God. We raise our children. We befriend others. We experience loss. We experience gain. We go through fun times and hard times and good times and bad times with Jesus now. He keeps us going. He brings us back. We gather not so that people at church and see we're here, but we gather because he's worth our lives. We come to him in worship, doing this work together. He pulls us out of the rat race. He puts our feet on a better path, a path that he prepared for us before the foundations of the world. He will stick closer to a brother. He is with us in every trial of life. Kohelet looks at the world and he sees brokenness. Jesus comes to a broken world. Jesus offers you and me a better way, a way to navigate the brokenness of our systems, a way to navigate envy and vanity and loneliness. This is the gospel in Ecclesiastes 4. This is good news for a broken world. Let's pray. God, we see what the preacher saw. We see things that are wrong, fundamentally broken, things that are not as they ought to be. Remind us why that is. Show us how we should live in our limited time and space with our limited influence and power. How do we embrace our limitedness and live for your purpose? How can we be a part of your work in the world? Show us that. Show us that as we process your word in our families, with our friends, in groups, whatever that looks like. Show us where we're running the rat race and maybe we didn't even know we were running it. Show us how envy has motivated us in different seasons and in different ways. Use your word this morning to remind us that that motive is fundamentally bankrupt. And so even if we achieve all we want to achieve, we'll find like nothing there. Rather than envy, God, would you teach us how to be motivated by your grace with gratitude, that you are the one who keeps us going. You spur us on, that from a place of joy, we live into this world. From a place of gratitude that flows from your grace, we go about our lives. And finally, God, thank you for being our companion, the one who made us, the one who understands us more than we understand ourselves. You know things about us that we don't know about ourselves. I have no idea how many hairs are on my head, but you know exactly the number. You know the times they'll turn gray. You know when they'll fall out. You know when they'll be buried in the ground 6 feet under the dirt. I don't know any of that. You see clearly what I only see in part. You see the painting and I only see a corner of it. You're here. You're with us. And by grace, you draw near to your people. Show us to live your way in a fundamentally broken world. Give us faith to believe that the brokenness does not win, that the light has come and the darkness will not overcome it. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.